many times, eat your vegetables, look both ways, play nice, brush with Crest, all of that. Do your homework, move forward, move forward. Everything was geared toward health and growth and success and relationships and all of that, right? I'm guessing that's true for many of you, some, not everybody, but for many of us. So when something like a mass shooting takes place, people scramble to try to make sense out of how could something so awful happen, okay? And when something that shocking happens, as I mentioned before, we all get a little dumber. And there's a reason for that, okay? We've got a physician here, keep me honest, all right? So the part of your brains that makes you also very, very smart, so smart you came to this event, is found right behind your forehead. It's called the frontal cortex. That's the smartest part of your brain. That's the part of your brain that thinks abstractly, the part of your brain that reasons, that thinks about thinking, that thinks philosophical, theological thoughts. Helps you to multitask. It's connected to parietal lobes which help you to do math. Okay? That's the smartest part of your brain. But it's the slowest. It's kind of like an iPhone with a lot of apps on it. Okay? So when we're shocked, and especially when we're traumatized by something as shocking as people shooting a dozen strangers or people shooting kids, that part of our brain ceases to be front and foremost, okay? Because it's too slow. And so when we automatically kick into fight, flight, freeze, other parts of our brain are activated, okay? Limbic system, I won't go into all of it, but the amygdala, which is the animalistic, quickest, fastest, reflexive type part of our brain. So, for example, in the unlikely circumstance that you and I got into a fist fight today, sir, and if I threw a left hook, you would not want your frontal cortex to be predominant because it would be thinking about the history and philosophy of pugilism, okay? You would want the fast, reflexive, self-protective part of your brain to kick in and to block my punch and knock me out, right? Okay? That's the part of our brain that becomes more activated when we hear something that is shocking because we immediately think, what if it was me? What if it was my kids? And especially when the shooting doesn't happen in a battlefield in Afghanistan, but the shooting happens at a Walmart with a friendly guy always greet your kids. That shocks, it breaks all the rules. So that part of our brain is working. Now that part of our brain has survival value if we're in danger ourselves, but when we try to make sense out of something senseless, that part of our brain is self-serving. They'll get more selfish also, short term. It's very concrete. It's very black and white. It's very linear, and one thing causes one thing. Okay? That's a part of our brain that's working when we're shocked like that. I want to give you an example. So if you hear about a teenager dying by suicide, right? Won't you hear from people? Well, of course, just got cut from the soccer team. Well, of course, girlfriend just broke up with him. Right? People will quickly run to one thing and point fingers. When we're shocked by something awful, we tend to want to find one bad guy so that we can make sense out of it, wrap our heads around it, even if it's artificial, and have a little sense of peace and feel safe for ourselves. So when there's a mass shooting, everybody will sprint to one thing that caused it. And there may be elements of truth in all of them, okay? So we could go right down the table here. It's Sheriff Kempker's fault. I mean, he's in charge of safety in this county, and Sergeant Coster, I mean, they're supposed to keep us all safe. It's law enforcement's fault. If they were doing their job, it would work. Oh no, it's the school's fault. If they were educating correctly, oh my goodness. No, I bet she bullied somebody at some point, somewhere in her life. It's her fault. Pediatricians should be picking this up when they do physicals every year. It's a mental health issue. It's guns. It's faith. It's fatherlessness. It's bullying. You could pick your thing, and everybody runs to their rant. And what does that do? What does that do? that further marginalizes, minimizes, and fragments our society. So my wish, if I got to be emperor for 5 minutes, would be that if everybody didn't run to Facebook and post something stupid out of the dumbest part of the brain, and instead took that 10 minutes and figured out who's one person in my life that's kind of on the fringe, that's left out, that's bullied, that is alone, that needs a reason to move forward. And if I spent 10 minutes with them, I think that would be more effective. So mental health is picked. No, mental health is so broad. I mean, mental health, it's almost like medical health. So should people who have a mental, are they at greater danger? No, most folks with a mental illness are 4 times more likely to be the victim of violence than they are to be the perpetrator of it. And so when we sprint to say it's all a mental health issue, that makes people less likely to ask for help. Help-seeking behavior is one of the strong resilience threads that holds us together. And mental health is so broad. So is somebody with panic disorder such that they don't dare to leave their house because of fear of panic attacks, are they more likely to be violent? Heck no, you're probably safer from them than anybody else on the planet, right? So pinning it on mental health is a frantic effort from people on the outside who don't understand, who really want somebody to blame and point toward. The one element of truth that I would see in the mental health issue is the fact that if you think about every mass shooter, none of them had an escape plan. Every one of them knew they were going to die that day. So reducing suicide risk, I believe, is one of the best ways to prevent mass shootings. Now, I'm not running to my rant about that, but I'm saying that's a big part of the solution, I believe. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next, we'll hear from Joellen Rindris from Health West.
I gotta kick my purse under my chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, good. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 initial stages that happen after a mass shooting, or 3 stages that happen. First is the initial stage. And we know that communities are affected in a wide way after a mass shooting. When you think about it, your safety, everyone's safety. I thought I was safe in this at Pints and Courts in Muskegon. I thought that was a safe place to go. And all of a sudden there's a shooting at Pints and Courts or Walmart or the courthouse, a hospital. Think of how that would impact how you feel safe in your community, right? So we also know that the impact is great. You have the people that have died and their families. You have survivors. You have hospital staff that took care of people. You have the first responders that responded to the scene, all kinds of them that took care of people. You have the behavioral health people that respond, that take care of people. All those people are impacted. Where the survivors and the deceased went to school is impacted, right? Where they work, if it's your fellow employee, if it's your Boy Scout troop leader, your coach of your basketball team, those all impact us as a community. So in the initial phase, you can imagine it's quite chaotic, right? Because nobody really can plan for each kind of mass shooting. Communities and emergency response people can't plan for each way that a mass shooting occurs, right? So that's, the chaos is there. Reunification centers are set up by usually the FBI Victim Services and the Red Cross, where people are coming, lists are being made to determine who's injured, who's not around, finding people, hopefully reunifying with people that weren't injured is going to happen, so families go there. Lists are made of who's in what hospital, so families need to go where to be with their loved ones. That happens. There are death notifications that are made at that time. There are, what I can only describe to you is this sense of horror that is palpable. You can feel it. That is what is present everywhere in the community. This horror that you feel. So that is present in the initial stage. People don't believe what's happened. Don't believe it's happened here. I can't believe it's happened. They feel shocked. The media starts to show up, which is interesting, right? People start to pray. They start to go to church. They seek religious comfort. After that, the homicide investigations begin, right? Right away. People are going to be maybe even questioned about those things. So there's all kinds of people coming into a community, all kinds of emergency responders to support that community at that time because their services are overwhelmed. Then the second phase is trying to return to some sort of routine, right? I need to go sweep up the glass from the shots that shot into my building. I need to go check on my employees. I need to go, am I reopening my business? Should we reopen my business? I need to make sure that my kids are going to school or staying close by me, or what the plans are. So people start to try to plan or have some sort of routine. Unfortunately, there's also a homicide investigation going on at this time, and there is tons of media that are present that can make those things very difficult for getting back to normal. Media starts to show up at all different places. People don't know, should I talk to the media? Should I talk to the media about my loved one? Is that a way to honor them? Or should I not talk to the media? And by the way, the media gets things wrong all the time, just so you know that. And it will happen to you if you talk to them. So that's part of what's going on at that time. Family assistance centers are started, or family assistance center usually, and that's where families can go to get psychological first aid. They can go to get financial support. That's where the Red Cross and the FBI Victim Services are there. They can go to get resources. Funerals may start to be planned. There will always be a vigil right away. There could be memorials that are being planned as well, so people will be starting that phase, the planning. And so that's still giving people things to do, right? There's still like things to do to keep you occupied. At this point too, political agendas start to surface, and people are definitely, the theme is asking why. Why did this happen? Why